Welcome to tonight's Renewable Energy and Sustainable Living presentation, brought to you by MAREA, the Mid-Atlantic Renewable Energy Association. I'm Phil Jones, tonight's host. MAREA is a 501c3 nonprofit grassroots organization made up of volunteers dedicated to educating and engaging the public and advocating for renewable energy production, energy efficiency, and sustainable living. We encourage you to listen, ask questions, experiment with what you learn, and help others become more sustainable. Before we get started, we want to remind you a recording of last month's presentation by Marianne Glenn about how and why to build a mini forest is available on our website. You will also find many of our past presentations on our website and YouTube channels. Our YouTube channel, which is the Mid-Atlantic Renewable Energy Association channel. We also want to highlight upcoming July, August, and September presentations. On July 28th, in part 2 of our Solar Progress and Its Impact, QCell's solar application engineer, Gil Jones, will examine how technology, manufacturing, and application experience have improved solar performance, reliability, and cost from a world-leading industrial supplier's perspective. August 25th, we turn to efficient use of that energy with Scott Seidlow's principle of solstice home performance, who will share ways to reduce your energy use, especially in the area of your building envelope, which is the sweater and breathable raincoat you need to stay more comfortable in this summer heat. September 29th, Cameron Best from Bright Core Energy will present geothermal heat pump solutions from home to commercial size and many ways geothermal can be effectively implemented for very efficient heating and cooling. And now for tonight's presentation. During the presentation, please mute your microphones. You can enter questions or comments into the chat box, which our speaker will address at the end of his presentation. And now our programming chair, Charles Coe, will introduce tonight's speaker. Chuck?
Good evening. Dr. Pali Singh is a professor of electrical engineering at Villanova University. He received his bachelor's in science and physics from the University of Birmingham in England in 1978 and his PhD in applied science and electrical engineering from the University of Delaware in 1984. Dr. Singh has been a professor of electrical engineering at Villanova University for 41 years. He teaches postgraduate courses in power electronics, renewable energy systems, electrochemical power sources, and smart grid systems, as well as undergraduate courses in an array of analog electronics. Dr. Singh has performed research in solar cell materials, including amorphous silica, cadmium telluride, zinc telluride, has experience with electrochemical materials fabrication and characterization, including advanced scanning electron microscopy techniques. He has over 25 years of research experience in energy storage and performed pioneering work in fuzzy logic-based state-of-the-charge and state-of-the-health estimations of batteries for a wide range of chemistries and fuel cell applications. He has designed and built battery management instrumentation, has over 150 peer-reviewed conference and journal publications, and has consulted for the U.S. Department of Energy on thin-film solar technologies, as well as combined energy systems. His recent research, has focused on novel techniques, actually in my laboratory, for lithium-ion and lead-acid battery state of charge and state of health characterization. He is awarded the 2022 Dugan-Fraser Award for Excellence in Engineering Education, and I am proud to announce that he was the recipient and named the 2027 chair of the IEEE Humanitarian Board. In this role, Dr. Singh will lead the organization that supports the IEEE volunteers around the world to leverage technology and improve the lives of people in underdeserved communities. It is my real pleasure to have introduced Dr. Singh, not only a colleague and friend, but an excellent resource on any question I have related to electronic systems. Dr. Singh, the floor is yours.
Hello, this is Pali Singh, a professor from Villanova University. I apologize that my recording wasn't good yesterday, and so I'm recording this session for you to be able to share with the Maria community. So my presentation today is going to be focused on looking at how solar technology has evolved, talk about some basic concepts of solar PV systems, and then discuss the criteria for assessing new PV technologies. I'll then go on to talk about recent advances in solar PV technology and in battery technology, and then show the application of solar energy for international development. So most solar cells operate on the principle of the photovoltaic effect. And basically this can be described by the following statement. The generation of an electromotive force, which is basically a voltage, when light shines on an inhomogeneous medium. And usually the inhomogeneous medium is a p-n junction. So you can have two types of semiconductors. One is called a p-type, the other is called an n-type. And when you bring them together, they form what's called a p-n junction. And if we look at the basic concept here, you have the p material semiconductor here, the n material here, and then light shines on that junction. This causes electrons to be generated, and then they can flow in the external circuit through a load to generate power. So that's the basic concept of the photovoltaic effect. When we look at the current voltage characteristics, this is the current, this is the voltage. Without light shining on the p-n junction, we get this type of curve, which is basically that of a diode. And you can see in the reverse voltage, there's almost no current flowing. In the forward voltage, you get an exponential increase in current. Now, when you shine light on the p-n junction, then this whole curve moves down and moves down by the amount of the light generated current. And over here in this quadrant, we can generate power. So an individual solar cell usually only generates about half a volt of DC output, but can generate more than 1 amp of current. Well, half a volt is really not very useful, so we need to string several of these cells together to obtain a reasonable output voltage. A solar module or solar panel usually comprises about 30 series connected cells, which gives about 15 volt output. And that's been developed as a standard over time to match the charging voltage for a 12-volt lead-acid battery. And we can then also string solar cells in parallel to provide higher current. So adding the cells in series provides higher voltage. Adding them in parallel provides higher current. So the power output of a typical solar panel ranges anywhere from small cells, tens of watts, to the types of solar panels that you would put on the rooftop of a home, which would be over 200, 300 watts. And a solar array is made up of many interconnected modules, which would typically generate of the order of kilowatts of power. So in this figure, you can see the individual solar cell on the left, then a module comprising series connected solar cells, and then an array connecting series and parallel combinations of solar modules or solar panels. So over the years, I've been considering what are the assessment criteria that we need to consider when we're looking at solar cell technologies, especially emerging technologies. And I've come up with three main criteria that need to be satisfied. The first is the solar cells must be high efficiency. And that has been trending upward over time. So back when I started researching back in the late 70s, early 80s, solar cells were considered high efficiency if they were over about 10% efficient. Now the standard is more like over 20, 22% efficiency because the technology has evolved to much higher efficiencies of the solar cells compared to when I was a graduate student. The solar cells must be low cost. And again, this has evolved over time. Solar cells were considered low cost if they were of the order of $1 per peak watt of power generation. Now you can buy solar cells that are around 10 cents a peak watt. And so the standard again has changed to a lower cost threshold. And then the third thing is that solar cells must be stable. As I will share in a few minutes, solar panels that you can buy on the market nowadays have extensive warranties, 25, 30 years, and even more. So these are the criteria that when you're looking at new solar cell or solar panel technologies, are the criteria that you need to use to assess the commercial viability of the technologies. There are other factors that play into these criteria that need to be considered. So materials availability. If we're looking at producing terawatts of solar cells, we need to have enough material in the world to be able to produce these large quantities of solar panels. We need to look at the cost of component materials, so not just the solar cells themselves, but the glass casing, the polymer encapsulants, and so on. So these become additional factors that we need to consider. The toxicity of materials. So many materials that are used in solar panels can be toxic. And so we need to make sure that there's, understanding of how we manage the toxicity of materials. The throughput of the manufacturing process. Again, this has evolved over time. Now you can put glass in at one end in the case of cadmium telluride solar panels, and within a few minutes you have a fully functioning solar panel. So any manufacturing process is required to be able to have high throughput in order to be competitive. And then the materials utilization of the production process is an important criteria. How much material are we using versus how much material is being wasted, because then that influences the cost of the production of the solar panels. And finally, then the capital equipment and labor costs that go into the manufacturing of the solar panels. So these are all additional factors that play into whether a new solar panel technology is going to be commercially viable. So this is an interesting version of the periodic table that was developed by the European Chemical Society. And you can see that there are different colors of the different elements in the periodic table here. We have hydrogen with a green background, lithium with a yellow background, and then strontium with an orange or dark orange background. And then the chromium here is with a light orange background. So if you look at the legend in the bottom, you can see that the ones with the dark orange background, there's a serious threat in terms of materials availability or elemental availability in the next 100 years. The orange is rising threat. Yellow is limited availability. So there's some future risk to supply. And then the green means there's plentiful supply. So most solar panels nowadays are made out of silicon, and you can see that there's plenty of silicon in the world, and carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, so on. Other materials that are used in solar panels include silver, indium, gallium, zinc, arsenic, And you can see that these materials have more limited supply. And so we need to think about how we're going to be able to meet that demand for very large scale production with materials that may only be limited in supply in the world. So let's review some of the existing commercially available solar panels. The most common material is crystalline silicon. It's the most widely used material for both space and terrestrial applications. And this is comprised of a single crystal of silicon. Then there are polycrystalline silicon solar panels. These are made from they're cast in ingots and then sliced into wafers. They tend to be rectangular solar cells, whereas the ones that are crystalline tend to be circular solar cells. The polycrystalline silicon solar cells have many little crystallites in the solar cell. They're also widely used. The efficiency of polycrystalline silicon is a little bit less than crystalline silicon, but is a good option because it's a little cheaper to manufacture. Amorphous silicon, which is what I did my graduate studies studying, is a thin film material and has been made with multiple layers and are available for some very niche applications, but they're much lower efficiency than crystalline or multicrystalline silicon. And so there are really very few manufacturers left in the world of amorphous silicon solar panels. Gallium arsenide is a material that has been used for some applications in space. It tends to be much more expensive than silicon, of the order of 7 to 10 times more expensive. But for some space applications, it's a good option because it has better resistance to cosmic radiation. And so when you're putting this payload up into space, it has higher efficiency and better resistance to cosmic radiation. So it's a good option for certain applications in space. Cadmium telluride is a thin film material which can be made in large areas. It has a little bit lower module efficiency than crystalline silicon, but it also has a better price point. And so commercial modules are being implemented for utility scale applications, not really for residential applications. And in research, efficiencies over 23% have been achieved. Another material that's also a thin film material, so compared to crystalline or polycrystalline silicon materials, which tend to be relatively thick, cadmium telluride and copper indium gallium diselenide tend to be thin materials. So we're talking about 5 microns versus 100 microns in thickness. And again, similar in module efficiency to the cadmium telluride. And there are a few manufacturers of copper indium gallium diselenide solar panels. And then other materials include organic materials. These are low-cost materials and are made through low-cost processing, but their efficiencies tend to be much lower than the crystalline silicon solar cells, and they can also be unstable. The buzz right now is around perovskite materials. These are low-cost materials that can also be made through low-cost processing. They have relatively high efficiency, but also can be unstable. And now initial efforts to commercialize this technology is underway. And then there are quantum dot solar cells as potentially the next generation of solar cells, but this is still under development in the research and development phase. So if we look at the basic structure of a solar cell, this is what it looks like. So you have the metal conducting strips on top of the solar cell, and then you have a glass lens on top of the cell to encapsulate the solar cell. And then you have the N-type silicon and a P-type silicon. So that's your PN junction in a typical solar cell. And then you have some type of back contact. So the metallic strips on the top allow the sunlight to pass through, but also allow you to collect current between the top of the cell and the bottom of the cell. So you have these two contacts on the front and the back of the solar cell that can then be connected to the load. Electrons flow out to the load, and we can generate voltage and current. So that's the basic structure of a solar cell. Now, if we look at the more recent advances, there are two topologies that have become commercially more competitive than the simple basic PN junction type solar cell. So the first is what's called the interdigitated back contact solar cell. So here you can see the P and N regions, instead of being sandwiched between two layers, are actually distributed on the back of the solar cell. So there's no shading from the metallic strips on the front side, and the light comes in and creates the electrons that then flow to these back contacts. And you can see this is a contact to the N region, this is the contact to the P region, and the output here is between those two contacts there. So in this case, all of the contacts are at the back of the solar cell. The etched groove solar cell has a long PN junction, which is sort of laser grooved into the solar cell. This helps with improving efficiency of the solar cell as well. This particular technology was developed by Richard Swanson's group at Stanford University, and this was developed by Professor Martin Green at the University of New South Wales in Australia. So I'll skip over this particular slide and shift to the actual modules that you can buy on the marketplace. So this is the SunPower modules. This is based on that interdigitated back contact structure. And you can see this is about 20% efficiency. And you can see this is about 435 watt panel. So it's a pretty high power output for a single module. And you can see how SunPower's module efficiency has been increasing over the years. And so this is about 2020 technology. A more recent SunPower module datasheet, this Maxion 6, has also about 410, 420 watt power output. But the efficiency is high, you can see around 21.7%. The thing I want to point out over here, though, is that it's a very durable and stable technology and offers the industry's longest warranty. So I mentioned earlier that most solar panels come with either a 25 or 30-year warranty. Maxion offers a 40-year warranty, assuming that it's installed by a Maxion partner. And the standard warranty, if somebody else installs it, is a 25-year warranty. So this is just, to me, amazing that the solar modules can come with a 40-year warranty to be producing, maximum of, as you can see here, the minimum warranted output is 98% in the first year. And after 40 years, I think it drops down to about 90%. But it's really a very high quality product, and you pay a premium of 10 to 20% on the price of other modules to get this high quality module. The other technique I mentioned was the laser grooved technique. And you can see some various oxide layers here on the front side and the back side. And that helps to keep the electrons that are generated by the light that's shining on the solar panels, keep them from dying before they come out to the outside world. So there's a particular type of structure that has been commercialized called the passivated emitter and rear cell, or PERC cell. This type of solar cell achieved 25% efficiency in 1999 and has recently been surpassed by Panasonic and SunPower by up to 26.1% efficiency. These are sort of record efficiencies for this technology. Nevertheless, you can see this is a figure from presentation by Martin Green 5 years ago, where he talked about how the trend is changing in the production of solar panels. And you can see that he highlights here that the PERC technology is one that is really dominating the market now. Another technology that has become favorable now is the bifacial solar panel. So in this case, you have solar cells on the front and light also comes from the back side, so that you're getting generation from the direct solar energy that's falling on the front side of the panel, and then any reflected radiation that's bouncing off the ground onto the back side of the panel. That's why it's called bifacial, because you're getting power generation from the front and the back of the solar panel. So one of the companies that's developed this technology is Renogy, and this is directly from their website. They say increased energy production is one of the benefits of this approach. They claim 5 to 30% more power, but I think it's probably more like 5 to 10%. The 30% is probably if you have snow on the ground, you might be getting extra generation because of that. It also says better low light performance. Of course, when you have lower light, you're going to get lower power output. So even though you are getting more power on cloudy days, the power output is not going to be that much more than with a standard solar panel. They mentioned durability because it has a double glass construction, and so it improves the resistance to harsh weather. Again, when you compare it to the Maxion module, the SunPower module, with the 40-year warranty, these Renogy panels don't meet that length of warranty. It's versatile. It can be put on rooftops, ground-mounted, and on carports. And it has the potential for lower life cycle cost of energy or electricity, but it all depends on the particular assumptions that you make in the economic analysis. And then if we look at some of the cons, these types of solar panels come with an initial higher cost. And so you really have to justify the application for these bifacial solar panels, and whether the costs outweigh the benefits outweigh the costs of this type of panel. And as you can see, they also refer to complex installation requirements. All right, so that's the bifacial solar panels. The next technology I want to talk about is the TOPCon technology. Sorry about that. So the next technology is the TOPCon technology. And basically this, in addition to the P layer and the N layer, it includes this very thin oxide layer. And that helps to, again, improve the efficiency of the solar cell up to 25%. So most of these TOPCon solar panels are also bifacial solar panels. And there are a number of companies manufacturing this type of solar panel. One of them is Jinko Solar that's listed here. So all the buzz right now is around the perovskite solar cells. And these are cells that are relatively low cost, use readily available material, and have shown an exciting growth in the advancement of the technology. So perovskite solar cell structures were first proposed in 2009, and their efficiency at the time was around 3.8%. In late 2017, the efficiency had increased to 22.7%, which is the fastest increase in solar cell efficiency in the history of solar cell research. So that's why all the buzz is around these materials. So the most commonly studied perovskite is methylammonium lead trihalide. And I won't go into the details of the crystal structure here, but you can see that it has this sort of octahedral structure. So perovskite solar cells basically look like this. So this is a transparent electrode, then a transparent material, then the perovskite material, another transparent material, and then the electrode. So we have an electrode at the top and the back. This is the transparent electrode, so light comes through it, but it also is electrically conducting, so we can make a contact to the bottom and top of the cell and get current and voltage out of the cell. So this is a perovskite-only structure. More recently, there's been research around putting a perovskite on top of a silicon solar cell. So this is what's shown here. We have a transparent electrode, the perovskite structure, and then a silicon solar cell. So this type of cell is called a tandem cell. And what happens is the light goes through the top cell, and some of the light is absorbed there and converted to electricity, but not all of the light is absorbed there. And so some of the light passes down to the bottom cell. And if you optimize the design, you can get a higher efficiency of a solar cell when you have this tandem configuration than just having a single cell configuration. So I'm going to describe the advances in both of these technologies, the perovskite only and the tandem cell. So the advantages of perovskite solar cells is that they employ low-cost materials. They're a hybrid inorganic-organic structure, and they can be made by various low-cost fabrication techniques. So you can put the material on, spin coat it, and that's one way to deposit. You can use vapor deposition in a chamber. You can use inkjet printing. So there are various low-cost techniques for making these types of solar cells. And they have very high optical absorption coefficients. What that means is that you need very thin layers to absorb the light that's being directed onto the solar cell. And so that reduces the amount of material you need and the material costs. And it can be deposited on a variety of material substrates. So you can deposit them on glass. You can deposit them on plastic if you want a flexible solar panel. So there are a lot of advantages of using these perovskite solar cells. The challenge has been to come up with larger size solar panels. So the initial research, you can see the efficiencies were rising very quickly, as I mentioned earlier. The red line here represents a standalone perovskite, and then the black line, or dark purple line, represents a perovskite silicon tandem. And you can see that the highest efficiency is approaching 28%. However, the efficiency drops off significantly as you increase the size of the cell. And so lab cells originally were no bigger than a postage stamp. and in terms of these high efficiencies, but now there are standard cells that have been manufactured that are larger in size. So although they're cheap to manufacture, there are various issues that exist. The first is that solar cells which include lead have shown the best performance. And there's some concern about the toxicity of lead, which is also a carcinogen. There's also concern about the long-term stability of the cells. The humidity and moisture degrade the cells over time. And performance in single cells of significant size is still low, but tandem cells with silicon are being explored, and they've demonstrated over 29% efficiency when we have a silicon base cell. So just to show you some of the more recent advances in perovskite solar cells. So in October 2022, researchers in the Netherlands achieved a 30% perovskite silicon tandem solar cell. December of 22, so literally just a few months later, German researchers at the Helmholtz Zentrum Berlin achieved 33.5% efficient perovskite silicon tandem solar cells. And then researchers at the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology achieved 33.2% efficiency in April of 2023, followed by 33.7% efficiency in May. In June of 2023, researchers at Longi achieved 33.5% efficiency. And so Oxford PV, a company based in Oxford, England, achieved 28.6% efficiency in a commercial-sized solar cell. So you can see that the technology has been evolving very rapidly in terms of cell efficiency. Looking at what is the stabilized performance, and we can see in February 2022, researchers at KAUST reported a thermally stable perovskite cell with 24.3% efficiency. So it retained its 95% of its value with 1,000 hours of damp heat test conditions, so 85 degrees C and 85% relative humidity. In June of 2023, researchers at the National University of Singapore reported stabilized efficiency of 24.3%, which is the highest efficiency for a 1 square centimeter cell in terms of stabilized cell performance. The highest efficiency perovskite cells, as you can see in this slide, is up to 34.85% reported by Longi Solar. And again, this is a perovskite silicon tandem cell. Now, in terms of commercialization, the company Oxford PV has started to commercially launch a tandem solar cell with an energy conversion efficiency reported to be of the order of 25%. There wasn't a lot of information on their website, but the one thing that did stand out to me was that it only offers a 10-year warranty. So again, it's not clear, the stability of these cells. And again, this is initial manufacturing. And so the price will be at a premium because it's small scale manufacturing. But at the same time, it shows that this technology is evolving into commercial applications. Right, so now I'd like to switch gears to talk about battery technology and how that has been changing over time. So until recently, almost all PV systems that were used in standalone isolated systems with battery backup used lead-acid batteries. The challenge with the lead-acid batteries is that they need to be replaced every 3 to 5 years for these applications. More recently, lithium iron phosphate batteries have become the battery technology of choice. They offer a longer service life, up to 10 years. And because of the large-scale production of these types of batteries for the electric vehicle industry, the prices of the batteries has dropped very significantly. So if we look at the price of lithium-ion batteries over time, you can see that back here in 2010, the price was almost $1,500 per kilowatt hour. And then as we come down to 2025, it's reduced down to $108 per kilowatt hour. So it's a very substantial reduction in the cost. And one of the things right now is that because the electric vehicle industry has not grown at the rapid pace that was expected, there's a sort of glut on the market of lithium iron phosphate batteries. And as a result of that, the price is really very competitive at this point in time. All right, so now I want to shift gears to talk about the opportunities for PV systems in emerging economies. So one of the reasons for growing interest in PV systems for these emerging economies is for energy security reasons. As you know, in the last few months, the price of oil has gone very high, and as a result of that, that's led to fuel costs, diesel and gasoline fuel prices increasing very significantly. Now, while we feel that in the sort of developed world, it's much more impacting the economies for the emerging economies. And so to try to avoid the concerns of price fluctuations with oil, the emerging economies are looking to invest in renewables where they're not subjected to these price fluctuations. Another factor that's influencing investment in PV systems in emerging economies is climate change and the way it's affecting rainfall patterns. Many of the emerging economies have generate most of their electricity from hydroelectric power stations that are often more than 40 years old. And with the climate change, many of these power stations, the hydroelectric power stations, are seeing reduced power output because of drought conditions or reduced rainfall conditions. You may have seen on the news that in Ecuador last year, 90% of the electricity in Ecuador is produced from hydroelectric power. And so they experienced many blackouts in Ecuador simply because of lack of rainfall and therefore reduced hydroelectric power production. Many countries in sub-Saharan Africa lack access to electricity. So this is an opportunity with the drop in the cost of batteries and solar electric components to provide access in particularly remote rural areas to electricity. And of course, sub-Saharan African countries have good solar resource, so that's a good reason to invest in this solar technology as well. And an important element is that electricity is an enabling technology and can spur economic development in low resource settings. And the case study that I'm going to show you is an example of how electricity can be used for spurring economic growth. All right, so the case study project that I'm going to describe to you is in Burundi. Burundi is located in East Africa, and it's one of the poorest countries in the world. It's ranked at 180 out of 187 countries on the Human Development Index, and only 13% of the population has access to grid electricity. And most of the people who have access to grid electricity are based in the capital city of Bujumbura. Only about 3% of the population in rural areas has access to grid electricity. Now, the low economic development in Burundi has been caused by a lot of political instability in the country. But in recent years, Burundi has seen some political stability, and being a relatively poor country offers the opportunity for growth, economic growth. And so many countries are looking either through the World Bank or through other banking resources, the Africa Development Bank, to invest in Burundi to help with economic development there. So Burundi has a power generation master plan. And as you can see in the slide, they're really looking at investing in solar electricity as a means of increasing access to the electric grid or to electricity. And when we look at the global growth in solar electric systems, you can see here that it's an exponential growth. This is only out till 2020. If you project further from the most recent reports, you can see that we're actually at more than a terawatt of installed capacity at this point. And so you can see in this figure that we have just in the year 2020, the addition of 139 gigawatts compared to the previous year. And most of that investment has been in China. And the same applies to wind power systems. Again, a lot of investment in renewable energy systems in China. And then when we look at the price of solar panels, they've been dropping very consistently. And back in, I guess, around 2000, the price was a little more than $5 a peak watt. And now the price of the modules is more like 10 cents a watt. So the price of solar panels has really come down a lot. And of course, as I shared earlier, the technology has improved. And so this is a great time to invest in solar electric systems. And again, for energy security reasons, many developing nations are really looking at this as an opportunity to provide energy security for their countries. So I wanted to share this one project that we did in a rural area of Burundi called Bugarama. You can see the picture on the left here. This is a house that's a tailoring business. And on the right, you can see ladies tailoring garments out of the various cloths that you see in the back using conventional non-electric sewing machines. And so this is it's a beautiful picture. You can see the colors of the fabrics and so on. But they make garments primarily for local consumption in this tailoring business. So what we wanted to do is to electrify the business. So install a solar electric system, add electric sewing machines and computers, and this would help with improving productivity and also potentially allowing orders for this business to come from outside Bugarama rather than just serving the local population, to serve a more broader population. We performed some digital literacy training, and the goal was to increase the revenue from the tailoring business, so helping with economic development. So this is a picture of the installed solar electric system with many of the women from the tailoring business here. And then on the right, you can see another picture, and you can see the pig here just to show the rural context and setting for this system. So we installed some electric sewing machines like the one on the left here. And then we also brought down some computers that we installed. and performed some digital literacy training. So the idea here was, again, to have these ladies understand how to use a computer for example, accounting purposes, also for taking orders from, for example, from Bujumbura. And we also had a computer-controlled sewing machine, so they could take a file with the garment specifications and then print it out using that uh, computer-controlled sewing machine. So this is, again, a way to improve economic development, but you can only do that if you have access to electricity. Another thing, as a result of the community members here having access to electricity and seeing the potential opportunities, they were saying that we would like to get a printer to be able to print out notices and things for the school, and they could get extra revenue from that. And so as they started seeing the potential here, they were coming up with new ideas for their own economic development. So again, the electricity in this case is really an enabling technology for economic development. So in conclusion, PV technology continues to advance. Prices have dropped to really low levels at this point, and so this it's a perfect time for investing in solar electric systems. As we saw, the PV deployment is continuing to grow exponentially. And then energy security concerns are also promoting more development of PV systems in emerging economies, which is also contributing to economic development. One thing I should also mention about Burundi is there are green financing banks in Europe that would like to invest in companies that are deploying solar electric systems. One of the challenges in Burundi is that there are not enough trained, skilled engineers and technicians who know how to design a system, how to install the system, and so on. So we recently received a large European Union grant to work with 5 universities and in Burundi and the Ministry of Education, as well as the Ministry of Energy, to develop a national renewable energy curriculum to educate students in these 5 partner universities to be able to design, install, and develop solar businesses for expanding access to electricity in the country, as well as then stimulating more economic development. So we're really excited about that particular project as we move forward. So with that, thank you for your attention, and I appreciate this opportunity to share with you some developments in the solar field, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I'm going to, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. I'm going to ask the questions from the chat, and I just want to clarify that in the last 7 years, that 700 and some odd gigawatts has gone to 3.2 terawatts of global solar power installation. I just looked it up on the internet. So it's
Wow.
amazing, an amazing growth rate.
It really is an exponential growth.
Yeah. So the first question here, any idea at this point what the cost premium is for a 50% perovskite, 50% silicon cell versus 100% silicon only cell?
I don't know the answer to that question. The perovskites have just started to be launched, and I have not.
Okay. Can you restart the high PV growth? Can you restate the high PV growth in China?
In terms of the back to that slide where I showed. Yeah, so you can see 103, 104, 110, 139 gigawatts of additional capacity. I would say 90% of that was from China.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Move forward here. In the worldwide adoption of solar, are developing countries getting the latest technology, or do the developing countries lag as the markets progress?
I would say it depends.
How many projects like the last one you showed in Africa are you involved in on a worldwide basis? And maybe you want to answer this, Polly, in two ways. One is your direct involvement, and two might be the Villanova, outreach Vista program.
Yeah, so um, I have a project, of course, the one that I have in Burundi, if I can expand on that a little bit. We just got a large European Union grant to actually develop a renewable energy education program in Burundi. So we're working with 5 universities in the Ministry of Education and 2 European universities to develop this program over a 4-year period. So that's a very exciting opportunity. We um, aim to basically be able to educate students to be able to go out and set up businesses, be able to design and install solar electric systems. So we're very excited about that particular project. Uh, I've had other projects we're doing in the Galapagos Islands with students uh, deploying solar electric systems there. One of the challenges in the Galapagos Islands right now is most of their electricity is generated by diesel generators. And of course, that both produces significant emissions and also consumes fossil fuels. And they want to become, carbon neutral there. That they had some initial goals, but it's sort of pushed out further into the future. But we're working with some students there, training them to be designers and installers of solar electric systems to meet the island's energy needs. And then next year, I'm going to be the IEEE Humanitarian Technology Board Chair, as you mentioned, Chuck. And under that program, we'll have many different projects that we're doing around the world to basically bring essential services to communities that lack those services and improve the quality of life of people in those communities.
But the vessel program, Polly, and just in general, isn't it something on the order of 17 different sites around the world or something like that?
That's correct. But
And probably involves 50 to 60 students.
oh yeah, yes, absolutely. Most of those tend to be in STEM outreach programs, some water projects bringing clean water to communities. And then the work, of course, I'm doing with my students is a combination of STEM outreach as well as solar energy systems.
Okay. What appears to be the biggest barrier to solar adoption worldwide?
Financing. It's very simple. Yeah. If there was more money, well, actually, it's a combination. So in Burundi, for example, there are some green financing organizations that would love to fund projects. These are mostly European Union green financing banks, but the technical skills for designing and installing systems are not available in country right now, which is the main motivation for us to really develop the technical skills of the students there to be able to understand how to design and deploy systems.
Okay. We have a request here that's a bit unusual, but if Alan Johnson could unmute his microphone and tell me what part you would like Polly to repeat, we could do that. We're not going to repeat the whole presentation, but if you have something you're particularly interested in, and you can either send another chat message or unmute your microphone.
You
I
hear
think
me?
Dr. Singh would be happy to.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear you, Alan.
You can skip all the technical information about how these transistors work and just go over the use of the solar cells, like at home, on people's lives, the batteries, that kind of stuff. Well,
Yeah. So
Maybe you want to go back to where you list the different types of solar cells, Polly, and go from there.
yeah, happy to do that.
Is that what you're looking for, Alan?
Yeah, probably not the whole thing, but
yes,
maybe I can just
that's
share a
good.
few of the. So this is the one of the best solar panels you can buy on the market right now, the SunPower modules. You can see that their efficiencies are up to 21.7%. They have good warranty, up to 40-year warranty if they're installed by one of the Maxion partners. And so these are very high quality solar panels. I'll skip. So there's a couple of other technologies. This PERC technology that was developed at the University of New South Wales. This offers around 20% efficiency as well, and are also very good solar panels. We have these bifacial solar panels that allow the light that is reflected from the ground to also be converted to electricity. The only thing is that the reflected light is relatively small compared to the direct light on the solar panel. So the gain, they say, is 5 to 30%, but the 30% is really if you're in snowy conditions. I would say it's closer to 5 to 10%. And then this is the technology that is up to 25% efficiency. And this company, Jinko Solar, is making these as bifacial solar panels. And then I guess then we get into the perovskites, which are so this is the company Oxford PV that's making these of the order of 25% solar cells with only a 10-year warranty. Does that answer your question, Alan?
Yes, that was good. Thank you. What type of solar cells are being used on people's houses nowadays in most cases?
So there's an array of different technologies. They're all generally silicon solar cells, and they're anywhere from 18 to 21%. I know the SunPower modules are sort of premium panels, but are very good quality. But then there's a whole array of little bit lower performance cells that are still very good. Typically, you can get 25 to 30-year warranty for the solar panels. Most of them are coming from China. So you have Trina Solar, Jinko Solar, Yingli, Canadian Solar. These are all good quality, but perhaps a little bit lower performance than the SunPower modules.
Any question I had, any idea what one of those, I think it's the SunPower Maxion 6 module costs versus a standard module cost? I must be into premiums tonight, cost premiums.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I would say probably maybe 20% higher,
Okay.
10 between 10 and 20% higher is my guess.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Alan, is there anything else you want Dr. Singh to go over?
Well, if nobody else has questions, I was just wondering, did you use the most efficient kind of solar cells on your projects in Africa?
No, just because of the available funding and the price point of those. But actually, so I've done 2 projects and have funding for a 3rd project that we're going to do this year. The first project was actually doing solar energy education and workshop at a university there called École Normale Supérieure. And that's actually a teacher training university. And so we got funding to install a 1 kilowatt solar electric system on the campus there. And so it's a combination of educating the professors at the university and installing a system, and then also helping them to modify their electrical engineering curriculum to incorporate some of the skills that are needed for both the solar electric system design, but also the business acumen to set up a business and be able to run a business, a solar business there. So that project, I was working with a partner, and I recommended that he buy the panels from Kenya, where I know there's a very reliable company, Davis and Shurtleff, that makes what are called tier 1 products or distributes tier 1 products. So those are high quality products. So when you're looking at solar panels or any solar electric system components, they're divided into tiers. So tier 1 is the highest quality, and then there's tier 2 and tier 3. And my partner, he ended up buying products from within Burundi, and they were not very good quality products. The solar panels were fine, but as an example, the charge controller that he purchased was a Chinese charge controller. It had no instruction manual. I went on the web to try to find information about it. I couldn't find anything about it. So, figuring out how to hook that up was a real challenge. So that was the first project we did. The second one was the one that I shared with you today, the one in Bujumbura. And I made sure that we got tier 1 quality products from Kenya for that particular project, and that worked out very well. We have one more project where we're setting up a solar water pumping agricultural education center that we're doing this year. And it turns out now the Kenyan company, Davis and Shurtleff, have set up a branch in Bujumbura in Burundi, and we're working with them to get price quotes for equipment and so on. Also, for the labs that we're setting up in the universities associated with the European Union project, those products we're also getting quotes from Davis and Shurtleff to make sure that we have good quality products in that. So yeah, you do have to be discerning in terms of getting the products in these developing countries that really meet international standards.
And what does the lower quality do? It makes them, you're unable to work with them, or is that
They may just fail over
okay.
a shorter period of time.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, they may not work reliably, so there may be other issues like that.
So it's worth it to spend a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, it's interesting. In the Galapagos Islands, they had the idea to reduce emissions from vehicles on the islands to import electric vehicles. And they imported some cheap Chinese electric vehicles. The batteries were of poor quality, and in a relatively short time, the batteries failed. There was no warranty on the batteries, and people were very upset about it. And also it was loading the system there. So even though you were reducing tailpipe emissions, you were still generating more emissions from the generation of the power from the diesel power plants on the island. So it really didn't benefit the company, and it led to system instability. So they stopped importing them. There are now a few Kia Soul high quality EVs on the islands, and Kia has set up 2 solar charging stations to recharge those vehicles. So, if you approach things the right way and with good quality products, you can be impactful. But if you're using low quality products, it can really be a failed project.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there aren't any other questions, we'll thank Dr. Singh again for a very informative session. But I'm going to turn the show back over to Phil for some final comments.
With that, we'll thank everyone for joining us this evening, and we'll be back at the July 28th, the last Tuesday of the month, for an industry perspective on some of what you've learned tonight, and to see kind of what's going on from the solar manufacturer's side. So that'll be July 28th. We'll look forward to seeing you then. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and have a good evening.